We are the hit makers, the record breakers. We've got style and grace and such pretty faces. Such articulate words could have only been uttered by one Dusty Rhodes, who we'll talk about later in the show. Welcome to the Going Broadway podcast. Happy Monday morning to everybody. I hope everyone is well. My name is Alex. To my left is Cole. Cole, what's happening?
Man, I'm doing good. How are you?
I am well also. William, good morning. Travis, good morning. John, good morning. Thomas, good morning. Lynn, good morning. William, good morning. Justin, good morning. The Thursday pod, I knew you'd come. It's only Monday, but I wish it were Thursday. It'd be awesome. Dusty, good morning. I kicked off the show with the Dusty Rhodes quote, and again, we'll talk about him later in the show. I also promised a belt of the past that I was going to feature on the show, and you know what? I'll show you guys this right now. I don't know how long I'm going to be able to keep this over my shoulder, but, oh, man. This is the Mid-South North American Heavyweight Championship belt. And this thing is a monster. And I'm trying to get this to adequately sit on my shoulder. There we go. So I'll hold on to this as long as, my shoulder doesn't crap out, so to say. But I'll tell you what. Why don't we kick things off by talking about something I posted on our Going Broadway podcast Facebook page and Twitter as well. What do you guys think about Vince McMahon being behind Otis's push? Cole and I talked last Thursday about the fact that if they were going to keep the Otis and Dolph Ziggler storyline going, that, there's no way that they're going to put over Otis, but they did. And so there's an article that came out over the weekend that anything and everything that is related to Otis's push, Vince McMahon is the one that's solidly behind it. He's the one that's backing it. And this is completely contrary to how Vince McMahon used to, at least the body type of wrestlers that he would push in the past. It caught me off guard. The result caught me off guard, and this article caught me off guard. Your thoughts, Cole?
So last week I told you that I thought Dolph Ziggler was going to win that qualifier match, and when he didn't, I started to think about, okay, why would this decision be made? And so then I heard a rumor that Money in the Bank was going to be shot as it's going to be like a free-for-all, so they're doing both matches at the same time, and it's going to be shot like you're not going to see the whole match the entire time. It's going to be like they're going to tune back in on it throughout the pay-per-view, and then eventually you'll get to see the actual match portion when they get up to the top and there's a ring and all that at the end of the night, whatever. If that's the case where it's going to be like periodically tuning back into the match as it's going on, I would say that it makes more sense to have Otis in it for the fact that there could be comedic relief involved. There's just a lot that you can do with him. Now, if you were doing an actual Money in the Bank match with the crew that you had on there, I think Dolph Ziggler fits that match better, which is why I initially picked my pick, not knowing that they were going for like this free-for-all, both women and men at the same time.
Which that's a story in itself we need to talk about.
It was a whole different aspect that I wasn't aware of when I made my pick. So now knowing that, I think it makes more sense to have Otis in there. As far as his push goes, I'm a little shocked just because, one, the tag team, they're in a tag team, and we'll talk about the other story that's broken out. The tag team division could be a little weak on SmackDown right now. Mm-hmm. So they obviously have a plan for him right now for the fact that they're not pushing heavy machinery. So that's interesting. It looks like they're going to continue this Dolph, Sonya, Mandy, Otis, storyline for a little bit longer. So it's an interesting concept. I like Otis. I think he has a very kind of old school demeanor to him as far as his promos and kind of his character is even. And he's fun to watch. He's a fan favorite. He's a great face to have from a mid card kind of standpoint. But I just don't know how far you can go with him. You know, like that's where my concern is that you get guys like Kofi and Daniel Bryan and people that you never thought would get over, and then they get over. You know, and I just feel like Otis could be that guy who gets over, and then they just like stop his push though because they didn't really have that big of a plan for him.
Yeah, and I agree with Jordan on here. He says, I love it, but he ain't winning Money in the Bank. And also shout out to Jordan. He's one of our new followers. I get a private message from him saying that he actually recently found out about us. He stayed up a lot last night going back and checking out some of our shows, which we appreciate. So again, shout out to you, Jordan. And we'll mention that a little bit later as far as you guys being able to check out all of our old shows. Dusty says it shows Vince every now and then still has some insight. Remember, he was also behind Mankind's push and a slight Eugene push back in the day. Both runs were entertaining and gave back to the fans by giving one of the fan favorites a push. Dennis, good morning. Yeah, and I don't dispute the fact that Vince every once in a while will do that one-off push, but it's not like it's going to be a push for the belt. I agree that he's not going to win Money in the Bank. If he does, that'd be one of the biggest surprises and swerves I've ever seen. And even in Cole's example, we talked about Kofi and Daniel Bryan. Whenever you do give them that push all the way to literally putting the heavyweight title on, or well, I'm an old school fan. I'm so used to saying the word heavyweight, which we all know that there's not really weight divisions in wrestling anymore. So the world title on Kofi and Daniel Bryan, even once you've done that, and then you've taken the belt off them, it's like, well, now what do you do with them? Because it's not that their push dropped, but it wouldn't have really made sense in both scenarios. I shouldn't say both. The Kofi scenario especially, because they still pushed Daniel Bryan once he dropped it to so the first time he beat Cena for it, and then, Orton cashed in his Money in the Bank, and that's how the Authority angle began. But at least with Kofi, whenever you had him lose it to Brock in, 8 seconds, it's like, all right, you just knew Kofi was going to be out of the title picture, and, like, that was it.
Right.
So if you do the same thing with Otis, even if they go so far as to have him win Money in the Bank, even if they go so far as to put the belt on him, then what? I mean, he's a funny guy. He's a great talent. I would say as far as in-ring work, I mean, he's skilled, but he's not. He doesn't put on entertaining matches from an in-ring standpoint. Like, yeah, there's the comedy factor, but it's kind of a combination of legit match and a comedy reel almost.
My other thing with him is that he doesn't really have like a finisher. He has the Caterpillar, which is not really a finisher. So it's kind of like he doesn't have a believable finish to a match as of right now. And then, like I said, he gets gassed. You can tell when he starts to run low.
Yeah. And
so he can't put on long matches. That's why he's great in a tag team, because you can kind of cycle him out, give him a break, and so I just don't know how far, like I said, I just don't know how far you can go with him. I don't think he wins Money in the Bank. I kind of shared my thoughts with you before the show. If they really want Money in the Bank to have the effect that it used to have, they got to get back to putting it on people that you would never believe that it would go on. Otis would be what would fall in that category, but I don't think they're going to do that. So I feel like Money in the Bank has kind of lost its touch because we put it on John Cena, who never needed the Money in the Bank in the first place for them to put him in a title match.
Or you put it on Brock Lesnar, who wasn't in the match in the first place.
Right.
And then, yeah.
It needs to go back to, like I kind of mentioned to you, I think you could really pull a swerve with Dana Brooke and just shock the world with her winning it, and then going and shocking the world again, winning the women's belt, or Lacey Evans. People who haven't gotten that shot yet, that catapults them. Dolph Ziggler was that. Edge was that. CM Punk was that. There's so many guys that got their Jack Swagger was that. I mean, there's so many guys who got they've officially got their push from the fact that they were able to get the Money in the Bank briefcase. So I feel like he is that guy who could get that, but I just don't see them doing that with him.
Yeah, and I don't either. Dennis says, do you believe that Vince wants to really sell the company? I truly believe it's a work. We talked about that on last Thursday's show. I don't want to get into it too much. Let's just say I'd be surprised if he does sell it. Clayton, good morning. Lynn says, I think Otis could be like a Kane or Big Show and be enhancement to the match, but not win it. 100% agreed. William and Mark, I wanted to mention, they've shouted out this belt. This thing is huge. It's a monster. And I said at the beginning of the show, I don't know how long I'm going to be able to keep it over my shoulder. This thing, I think, is like 16 or 17 pounds. So on that note, regarding the Money in the Bank ladder match, it was also revealed it was on SmackDown, right? Where they revealed that the men's and women's match are going to take place at the same time. So for those of you watching, I'm curious as to what your opinions on that are. On a couple different levels. One, what do you think of it, period? And two, do you think that means that there are going to be intertwined spots where they intentionally or unintentionally have, because we all know Money in the Bank has these ladder spots and high spots and whatnot. Do you think this means that they're going to have the men and women basically have simultaneous spots like that, or that they'd be involved in the same spots, if that makes sense? Evander, good morning. Here's my logic to that. If you go and look on our page, I posted some photos that were leaked, I guess, of the set on top of the headquarters. And I didn't think anything of it at the time, but you saw that there were two briefcases that were hanging at the same time. So if they're going on at the same time, my thought process is, well, they're going to have to come back to the same ring to get the briefcase. Does that mean, again, do you think that there are going to be spots where the men and women are both involved? Do you think there's any kind of physical interaction between the men and women? Because you got to think, you've got Shayna Baszler, you've got Nia Jax. I mean, from a storyline standpoint, they're more than capable of handling any of the men that would, accidentally bump into them and then create some kind of physical interaction. So I don't know. I found that to be interesting because obviously you've never had Money in the Bank ladder matches go on simultaneously. Now you could have them go on simultaneously, but then have it be really dumb and just, you've got one ring for the guys and then one ring for the ladies, but it didn't appear to be that way in the photo. Dusty says Apollo Crews might just be the shock that you guys are waiting for. Yeah, Cole replied to you, he's out of the match. So Lynn says, I think wrestlers, male and female, will cross paths during the match to make it more interesting. Jordan says, I think it's a good idea. It's something different. I like it. Bill says, hey, guys, can't stay long. Work gets in the way. Yeah, I hear you, man, but I appreciate you joining us anyway. Evander says, don't let Nia touch any of the guys. She might injure them. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. But I think it's an intriguing idea. I think they could pull it off if it's done well. It's supposedly already recorded, right. But, and we'll get to this later, live events are slowly coming back. So it leads me to wonder how much of Money in the Bank will be live, how much of it will still be what they've already recorded.
Right.
Because AEW had 2.5 months worth of, and we'll kind of intermingle topics here. AEW had months and not months and months, maybe 2.5 months of footage all ready to go in the can, so to speak. But they're starting their live events back this Wednesday. So I've kind of talked a lot. Cole, what do you think?
Well, one, I'm gonna give props for props to do. I'm glad WWE's taking a chance. This is very out of the ordinary for them to take such a unique turn on something like this. I mean, like, a lot of the times when they do these things, they kind of flop. For instance, the 24/7 championship. Trying to introduce something that seems cool or seems like a twist or a turn, and then it just kind of falls flat on its face. This has potential to be really, really good. All right, like this kind of match, this kind of setup has the potential to be really, really cool. Granted, it depends on how you shoot it. I don't know how I feel about a match being like throughout the pay-per-view. I don't know how I feel about that. I don't know if I'm gonna like watching like, okay, in this segment they're on the first floor, and then 30 minutes later after the next match, they're on the fifth floor, and then 40 minutes later after the next match, they're now on the final floor before getting to the roof. And then at the end of the show, I finally get to actually see the match. I don't know how I feel about that yet.
I hope they don't do that either, because WWE has done the multi-segment matches or whatever before. Case in point, I think it was the first one that pops in my head was Roddy Piper and Goldust at whatever WrestleMania that was. I want to say WrestleMania 12. They had their backlot brawl or whatever it was, but it continued to go on, even though you had 2 or 3 matches in the ring at the same time. So I agree. I think if they do it right, it could be entertaining. It could be fun to watch. And the way I look at it is, like I said, if they go with what they've already shot, they can go back and edit whatever they want. So, right. If there's a spot that doesn't come off good on camera, get rid of it. Especially if it's more of a cinematic type match, even more room to just cut it.
That's where I'm intrigued. If it's a cinematic shot thing, it might be better. If they do that whole like cut to scene thing, mm-hmm. that could be cool. That's the only way for me that I think that works. I don't think you can make it look like it's live,
right?
Even though it's taped, and then have me cutting to it every other 30 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
I do think there's going to be intermingling now that I know it was women and men at the same time going for the same, for their briefcases. I definitely think there's going to be intermingling of, you might see a man and a woman tag up together to help knock out another man and a woman, or
see, that's the point I was getting at. I mean, are you going to purposefully have that interaction to where one of the ladies gets involved in the men's match, or vice versa? I could see that happening if let's say you put Dolph Ziggler in the match. Then on the other side, on the women's side, if you would have put in Sonya Deville, because she's not in the match, is she?
No, man. That's what weirded me out just a little bit. Is again, you put Otis in the match, but not Mandy,
mm-hmm.
and I was like, you could have utilized that, and you could have had Sonya and Dolph interfere in the match and kind of take them out of the match, even to where even though they were in the match and got the spots that they needed to hit, that's the reason why they didn't win, mm-hmm. and continue their storyline. So the fact that Mandy's not in the match was kind of weird. Who knows? They might have like a Sonya Mandy Money in the Bank match that will probably be terrible.
My guess is they're going to have to do something if neither one of them got put in the women's Money in the Bank match, because otherwise it doesn't make sense for at least one of them to be in it, but then because usually in Money in the Bank matches there's an opportunity to progress multiple storylines because you've got multiple talents in the match. So it would have made sense, if they're not having their own separate match, to put one of them in and then have the other, cost them something like that. Roger says, I missed the instructions in order to try to win this belt giveaway. Can I please get on the list? So real quick, guys, and I'll go into more detail about this later. First off, this belt is not being given away, at least not right now. Who knows, that might change. Basically, to get in on our belt giveaways and just any of our free giveaways, period, you need to like our Facebook page, you need to follow us on Twitter and Instagram, and you need to subscribe to our YouTube page. That is what's going to give you the maximum opportunities to win any of our giveaways. So I'll go into that more later in the show. Lynn says split view would be awesome if they can pull it off. If the matches I'm thinking, I think you said if the matches are live or taped. I don't know if I'd go with split view, at least for the entire show. I mean, it might be okay if it's just for this match. If you have, if you have the match going on both matches going on simultaneously, but they're taking place in different parts of the building, at least until they all get on, on top of the building. That just sounds really weird, having to say getting on top of the building in relation to a wrestling match. That just, I don't know. I'd be okay with it, but not for the entire match. Like, just do parts where you've got a split screen, but then cut back to just a single.
My other thing about that is how long is the actual match? Because like a Money in the Bank match goes pretty long usually. Like just a standard Money in the Bank match. It's not like it's a 10-minute match. This is a good hour. So you throughout the entire pay-per-view, that's probably 3.5, 4 hours long, give or take. You're going to have them periodically showing throughout the building fighting, and then get upstairs. How long is that portion of the match is my question, because you have 2 matches going on at the same time. So 2 matches on that card that would initially take up half the card as far as time are now going on at the same time. So are we going to see an hour-long, hour-and-a-half match once it gets up there between 12 competitors, like, 6 women, 6 men? Are we going to see a 30-minute match because they've technically already been fighting for X amount of time? Like, those are the questions I have, is that there's just a lot of, if not done correctly, could go wrong or could just be lame. And so I'm glad they're taking a risk. I'm glad they're putting themselves out there, trying to be more creative. And I commend them for that. I just hope it's done well.
Yeah, and that's why I'm not going to be super upset or super disappointed if this comes off poor, because this is their first time doing it.
Yeah.
I mean, again, whenever we come on a week from today, because Money in the Bank's this Sunday, right?
Yeah.
Whenever we come back in a week, on next Monday's show, whenever we talk about it, we might be overly critical, or on the opposite side of the spectrum, we might be like way putting it over to, maybe too much, depending on how bad or good it is. But that's what we're here for. That's what we're supposed to do. But at the same time, because this is their first time doing it, I don't know if there's any kind of expectation on WWE's end if this is going to flop, or if it's going to knock it out of the park, so to speak. So it's got us talking. It's going to be interesting to watch. So I'm willing to be open to it actually being halfway decent. Andy says, can kind of see a bunch of that happening. I'm willing to put money on Nia Jax putting her hands on Otis. That'd be an interesting little schmoz.
Yeah.
Mark says it would have been better in a 3-level cage like the Triple Tower of Doom. I don't know. I was never really a fan of the triple cage. I know some people were, and I understand why. I just, for whatever reason, and I am an old school fan, don't get me wrong. I mean, I'm a fan of war games and just, basic cage matches, but I was never a fan of the triple cage for whatever reason. Maybe the debauchery that was the triple cage in WCW, where you had DDP and David Arquette and Jeff Jarrett. Maybe that soured it for me. I don't know. Joshua, good morning. Brett, good morning. Andy says every room has a motion cam and cameraman everywhere. It should be great to watch. Sean also says should be interesting. Jordan says plot twist. R-Truth comes running in, winning it.
As much as I would love that, because I love R-Truth, they have no desire to push him in any kind of main card or even really mid card level.
They're going to put the 24/7 belt back on with the whole Gronk going back to the NFL
within the next couple months at the latest.
Yeah. I wanted to bring up some other injury related news. So Jimmy Uso looks like he's going to be out for 6 to 9 months. He's got a knee injury. Cole hinted at this earlier with SmackDown kind of beefing up its tag team roster by bringing the Forgotten Sons onto SmackDown. This looks to be the reason for that. He's dealing with a knee injury. Will miss 6 to 9 months of action. Speculation is that he hurt it during the ladder match on WrestleMania. It's not been confirmed, but they've not been on TV since WrestleMania. So,
well, they did have the triple threat, and he was out. He did a promo with his brother,
but that was taped.
Yeah, so I mean, they technically were on TV, but
Yeah.
I don't know. It's the Forgotten Sons being called up is great, but now it makes sense why they were called up. This is why I said the Heavy Machinery thing doesn't really make a whole lot of sense for me, that you're not pushing Heavy Machinery right now in this little tag team feud that they're doing, unless there's a huge plan for Otis Mandy storyline.
Yeah. Sorry, guys. I got to put this belt down.
I
This is
also
getting ridiculous.
it's like Tucker's off TV right now too, and I don't know if that's just scripted for the fact that they have this thing going on with Otis.
Hold on. I just had a thought. And I won't get too far on this, but I just had a thought and I wanted to share it. What if they turned Tucker heel?
I mean, it could happen. Like right now, we know that the Hacker storyline is kind of looking at revealing some truth about a tag team that could be getting exposed and could break them up. That would kind of play into the whole Mandy, Otis, Dolph, Sonya storyline as well. From the fact that the Hacker also revealed all the stuff that happened with Sonya, and I don't know if I would like that because it looks like the Hacker only can hack on one story,
Yeah.
or one group of people. But I definitely think that's interesting that he's down hurt with 6 to 9 months. I mean, that's surgery. That sounds like a major surgery on a knee. If you're out 6 to 9 months.
Yeah, anytime you get a surgery directly on, I don't want to say any limb, but I mean, I should say anytime you get surgery directly on a joint, like a knee or an elbow or a shoulder, there's going to be more physical therapy involved. I mean, case in point, my wife was in a car accident. She's actually been in two, but she hurt her shoulder and she's still ongoing physical therapy, and that's been 2 years. So, anytime elbow, a knee, a shoulder, it takes extra time because there's more required from an anatomic standpoint to completely heal. Brett says, "Crap, we just got the Usos back."
He does make a good. When you're talking about having him wrestle with another Samoan or just another, tag team partner,
it wouldn't work.
Here's what I would say: give the man a singles push. Let him go. Let him go in the Intercontinental title picture right now. Why not? He is a talented wrestler. He has the mic capabilities. He has a finisher that is believable as far as just jumping off the top rope for like a Samoan drop or a Samoan, kind of jump. Let him go in the singles titles picture. He doesn't necessarily have to win the belt for me to be happy about it, but let him fill the roster up with the singles title, kind of mid-card area, and let him do his thing. We saw that they are capable of putting on good singles matches with the ladder match and with the one he had where New Day gets the belts. They're both capable of putting on great matches, regardless if they have a partner or not. So I don't know. I don't think that we have to shut the Usos down completely because he's out 6 to 9 months. Let him carry the weight on his own and get a singles push.
I kind of touched on what you just said. Brett says, can Jay team with another Samoan if we get them all in a faction? I agree with Cole. I think if you're going to have him wrestle, just have him just let him go by himself, let him be independent, and really just show WWE, show his peers that he can work by himself.
We're just so quick to take all these tag team guys that when their partner goes down, we got to tag them up for them to still have storylines, or we got to find them a new partner. No, a lot of these guys, they don't need a tag partner. It's just that's where their most prominent role is going to be right now.
Yeah, I mean, for someone like AOP, I forgot which one of them is injured right now. Yes, I'm okay with them taking both of them out because in that scenario, it doesn't make as much sense to just have one of them go by himself because they don't talk on the mic.
Right. Their skills are not as advanced as someone like one of the Usos.
Mm-hmm.
But my point is that a lot of these tag team guys that have been in the business for a while, for instance, the Hardys, that would be like saying just because Matt got hurt, Jeff shouldn't have been on air. No, Jeff has clearly shown that he and Matt has shown that they have singles career potential. The Dudley Boys, They both were able to show that they had single career material. You just got to look at it from that aspect that we don't have to tag them up with somebody every time because their partner goes down or take them off TV because their partner goes down. They have the ability to be great wrestlers.
And who knows, maybe not to go back to our previous topic, maybe that's what they're doing with Otis.
Yeah.
I mean, for all we know, it could be, Tucker might be injured. There might be some kind of undisclosed issue that
There's
we
a
don't
rumor
know
about it, but I don't know if it's true. Like, I haven't found a source that confirms that he's hurt.
Yeah. Dusty says, any chance if WWE goes with the faction idea with MVP as the manager for the Usos, Apollo Crews, and others could be the plan? I doubt it.
Not the Usos. Now, MVP being a manager is great, okay? He's got mic skills. He's got a reputation. He'd be a great heel faction leader.
They do need to stop putting him in matches, though.
Yeah, I don't think he needs to be in like right now. It makes sense because they're obviously using him as a placeholder for wrestlers who can't be on air right now.
Yeah.
So I'm cool with it. I'm an MVP fan. I like it. His catchphrase is a little old to be using as a relevant catchphrase. I get like when legends come back, they use their gimmick still. I just don't know if I would be using the whole ballin' thing because it's just not relevant anymore.
It's not aged.
And
it's not aged well.
And he's not saying it in a way that's believable. It's just like, and that's ballin'. Like, no, stop doing that. But I do like the idea of him running a faction, like a heel faction. I just don't think the Usos are involved with that. They don't need it. You'd be better off putting a tag team that needs that kind of push or that kind of help. If they were to turn like Cedric Alexander and Ricochet heel, I could see them being a part of the faction like that. Along with other factions that are heel factions that are still trying to find a way to put the pieces together. Apollo Crews, if he goes heel, that could make sense. And he could get a singles title push as far as mid-card maybe. But I don't think the Usos would be involved in something like that.
Sean says, I'll hold that belt for you. I'm sure you will. Let's see here. Brett says, agree, they're kind of like the Rockers to me, both talented. Yeah, what's another great example, at least from the Shawn Michaels standpoint. I think Marty Jannetty could have been, but he had his own personal issues that I think kind of kept him from going further in his career. Brett also says, I'm a fan of the wrestling manager. Yeah, I think that's a lost art in modern wrestling. I mean, you don't have a lot of what I would deem, classic managers. I mean, there will never be another Bobby Heenan. There will never be another Jimmy Hart. But I think to AEW's credit, at least they're trying, or at least they will be, I'm assuming, once this pandemic kind of slows down, so to speak. I mean, I'm sure they'll bring Tully Blanchard back with Sean Spears.
Arn Anderson
with Cody. I think having a face manager, though, or a face talent having a manager, it doesn't have that same feel whenever a heel wrestler has a manager. That feels more natural, I guess.
Right.
But really, I'm sure there's more that I'm not thinking of, but you don't really have anybody else that comes immediately to mind that has that same kind of
manager first mentality.
Yeah, I mean, you've got Sami Zayn that he's paired with Cesaro and Shinsuke as their mouthpiece, but he's also the Intercontinental Champion. I mean, and we'll talk about more Sami here in just a second. Perfect segue. But a manager is supposed to be a manager. The manager is supposed to stay on the outside. Right.
Even Zelina Vega is kind of like on that borderline of like.
But she's a wrestler. Yeah.
But does more talking and managing than wrestling. Drake Maverick is another example. He was kind of doing more talking than wrestling for a while. NXT is kind of trying to get back to that whole manager thing with the Chelsea Green manager and that guy that was representing those two. Terrible tag team we talked about. I can't even remember their names. The big guys that I told you it looked like they would just be Jinder Mahal's lackeys. Couldn't even tell you their name right now. They're terrible. It looks like they're trying to get back to that whole, like NXT's trying to get back to that old school manager style. They just haven't found the Paul Heyman in a sense. Like Paul Heyman's kind of probably the last great manager.
Yeah, I wasn't forgetting Paul Heyman. It's just he's not on TV anymore right now.
And probably won't be.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, like, he's probably the last specifically only manager that's great that we've seen in a while in WWE as far as things go. And I just don't think that there's anybody that's even going to come close to that right now that's not going to also be like a wrestler or have wrestling potential. You know, like, all of them are usually the manager spot's a placeholder for them right now. It's just, this is where you're going to get your most TV time, your most prominent role or action, and that's what it is.
Yeah. Donnie says, I've arrived, hit my music. Sorry, I don't have it handy. Maybe next time. Brett says Jannetty derailed himself. Andrew says Marty's 93 is greater than all of Sean's post-comeback. 100% disagree. 100% disagree. I mean, Sean's post-comeback was better than his before comeback. I mean, yeah. I mean, that's all I'm going to say. I don't feel the need to defend that. You can have your opinion, but I disagree. Donnie says, don't forget the best, J.J. Dillon. Yeah. J.J. Dillon was J.J. Dillon was the counterpart of Bobby Heenan for NWA and for Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling.
No, not the Authors of Pain. This is an NXT tag team that they got to beat up on.
They're pretty new.
Was it Ciampa that they beat up on?
I don't remember. That just shows how not
or Matt Riddle.
They are.
It was Matt Riddle.
Yeah.
They beat up on Matt Riddle, and then they had a tag match like 2 or 3 weeks later, and then haven't been on TV since because everything that they've done is like a D- grade, and it was terrible.
Yeah. Brett says Heyman is the greatest manager or advocate today. I don't disagree with that. It's just he's not on TV now.
And he won't be.
No, I think he's going to be strictly behind the scenes. I don't know. I don't know if. Oh, I'm not going to get off. That's going to be a whole nother topic if I go there. Lynn says, agreed, like Sir Oliver Humperdinck with Bam Bam Bigelow back in the day as a face manager seemed to work. It did work. I mean, Arn Anderson with Cody works.
Yeah.
It just, it doesn't have the same feel to it. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just, you're used to a heel manager. And again, that's coming from an old school fan. I mean, Cole is more of a newer fan,
Yeah.
but I think I might be stepping on his toes a little bit, but I think you'd agree with me that a heel manager feels like it has more purpose.
Yeah, and it's just kind of the culture that you can tell has just kind of been built. Like, it feels like a heel needs a manager to kind of validate them, especially if they're not good on the mic, because it's very easy, in my opinion, to be a face in the wrestling business, because you don't necessarily have to be good on the mic to be a face. You can high five and hug and take pictures with the fans and you're a face. Like, it doesn't take. Ricochet is a great example of that. His promos are not good. Okay, like, what he says on the mic is not good, but he's able to be one of the top faces because of the fact that he does cool moves in the ring, and he's nice to the fans. He high fives and takes pictures and throws out shirts, whatever. Heels, you either are good on the mic or you're not, and if you're not good on the mic, you need a manager if you're going to be a heel, because not everybody is that mic guy. You
Right.
know, like, they're not able to just get on the mic and tick the whole crowd off. And so, like, for instance, Brock Lesnar, they wanted Brock Lesnar to be a believable heel. Well, Brock Lesnar's not very good on the mic. It never has been, never will be. His in-ring ability speaks for itself.
But Brock Lesnar still would not have been Brock Lesnar without Paul Heyman.
Of course.
100% agree.
You got to have Heyman involved with that. And down the line, you can look at these guys who probably wouldn't have gotten as far as they did without the manager that they had because of their mic skills maybe at the time, if they were still kind of new or adjusting or whatever. I know there was also a period where when it went from being tapings to live and stuff, that really messed with a lot of wrestlers, because, like, redo it. And It's like, no, you're live. Like, so there's been transitions and stuff throughout history as well that probably affected that. But AEW probably has a better shot at reintroducing the face manager, because it's not a culture that's set in AEW right now, where WWE has set this culture that there's really no such thing as face manager. I mean, even Lana with Rusev Day, like, Lana's not really a face manager. She was just kind of there.
Lana was more of and I don't want to say an attraction because I'm not trying to be punny here in any way, but she was also an in-ring competitor.
Right. When she first came in, she was a great heel manager trying to get Rusev over because she just spoke in Russian and dissed the USA.
Yeah.
But then, like, when you go face, there's not, other than just saying the catchy, it's Rusev Day and singing some made-up song from Aiden English, like, there's no real face manager still. It was just kind of pandering to the crowd.
Yeah.
And we don't really have a face manager right now in WWE that has a way of getting the face over.
Yeah. I'm going to read some comments real quick. Brett says Lesnar won't be back until the pandemic is over. Same with Reigns. I don't know if Lesnar will be back even after the pandemic's over, at least right away. Andrew says Paul Heyman is pretty good. Yeah, I'd say he's better than pretty good. Evander says Rollins has a history of walking out Money in the Bank with the WWE title. Do you think this happens again? No, I don't.
No,
I'll just make it short and sweet. I don't.
Too soon.
Brett says heel manager works for a big bruiser that can't speak, which is why Zelina is now speaking for her Latino faction. Yeah, I mean it's still kind of different though, in my opinion, just because again she's an in-ring competitor. And
those guys' abilities speak for themselves, though. You know, like that faction could get over, in my opinion, without Zelina because they can all actually wrestle.
Yeah.
When you start talking about a lot of the heels that have had managers, they usually get this like monster, like push, like they're these uncontrollable, uncontainable, unbeatable monster that's getting unleashed on the company.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and they just make it to where they can't really talk.
Yeah.
So that I don't know. They don't really need Zelina, but Zelina definitely adds.
100% agree. Brett says Ricochet could use a manager, or he's just a low to mid card attraction guy. No, my problem with that is how WWE is using, or I should say not using, Ricochet correctly. And I've never been a fan of saying, well, someone's not using somebody correctly. But this is a legit case of Ricochet has shown what he can do in the ring. He can show that he has talent. He has shown that he has talent, and it's just for whatever reason WWE is just they're not putting him in a prominent role.
His United States Championship run was very lackluster because of the fact that they were trying to push AJ though.
Yeah,
and had that not been the case, Ricochet would have catapulted to the top and would have been in the main title card picture because fans are behind him.
Mm-hmm.
Again, face pushes are easier, especially for him. He doesn't need to be very good on the mic if he's going to come in and do a 640, 620, whatever.
However many flips
620 flip off the top rope and do that little kick off the post. You know, he's doing all these nuts moves like that you don't normally get to see on the main roster. That's not really their style on main roster. And he's kind of reintroducing that, and so he would have got a bigger push had they not been interested in pushing AJ Styles and the OC and all that stuff. They're just not using him correctly amongst other faces too. Like there's plenty of faces that they're not really giving them the correct push or the correct storylines to catapult them to where they need to be. They kind of just stop them, you know, and that's a bummer.
I'm going to breeze through some of these other comments real quick. Andrew says, other than Ellering, face managers stink. Lynn says heel managers are definitely better, just saying most face managers tend to make any shortcomings a wrestler might have, but that's few and far between. Brett says Aiden English was more of the Rusev Day manager. I think that's kind of tag teaming his earlier comment saying Lana is a valet. I'm grouping valets into this manager and valet together kind of thing. Andy says it's like when Jimmy Hart was with Hogan in WCW, nowhere close to the brilliance to even when he had a stable in the 80s. I 100% agree. The manager works as well for the heels because it outnumbers the heels. I think you mean it outnumbers the faces. Oh, yeah. I see your next comment. Dusty says, I'll give you a person that would be a great face manager, Christian.
I agree.
Yeah,
I would say
I could see it.
A lot of guys who are no longer really like wrestling, like they're kind of past the point of wrestling, but were really good on the mic, could come back and be good face managers. But then you also got to sign those guys because those guys are going to be attractions.
Yeah.
Christian would have to have a pretty decent contract for him to want to come back and just speak on the behalf of somebody like, you know, let's just say Ricochet, for instance.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like you have these guys who are draws because of their names. That's like saying if Edge could never come back to wrestling but came back and started managing, he would have probably a bigger contract than the person he would be representing.
Yeah. Brett says he's good, but they don't use him. Yeah, that's the point we were trying to make with Ricochet. But I don't think putting a manager with him would really help. It's just the fact that
he doesn't need that.
He doesn't need it. He needs to just be in a more prominent role. He needs to. I mean, quite frankly, they need to put him in a mid-card title picture. I mean, he's got the ability. He puts on entertaining matches. Case closed in my opinion. Vander says, dream match scenario. Could you just imagine Andrade with Zelina against Aleister Black with Charlotte? That'd be interesting. I don't know how they would. I don't know how they'd go to that.
To be honest with you, I would much rather just see Aleister Black have Zelina with him. I'm a big fan of them as just people. I've been watching some of their YouTube content, and they're just fun to watch. They're very similar in personalities in real life, and I think you could just incorporate that into their gimmick, and it would be great.
One last injury note, and we won't talk about this one for as long, but Kevin Owens revealed that he tweaked his ankle during that spot at WrestleMania where he jumped off the Tron or whatever onto Seth Rollins. According to the Wrestling Observer, he's expected to miss a few more weeks of action, but we don't know if that's an indication of whether or not he hurt his ankle as badly as initially thought, or if they're still anticipating results, or if he's going to undergo more tests. So,
explains why he's not on the Money in the Bank card and why it seemed like his push just stopped.
And part of the issue too is, and I don't know if this has anything to do with his injury, but basically with the coronavirus stuff going on, he's spending time with his family, he's staying at home. We don't know if that's something he would have done, injury or no injury. So hopefully we see him back sooner than later. I mean, I like Kevin Owens in the ring. I think WWE terribly mishandled his Universal title run.
Yep.
Basically in a squash match to Goldberg, him losing it. So, Cole, you wanted to talk about Sami Zayn a little bit and his situation.
Yeah, so I read actually this morning that Sami Zayn has actually is now withholding from tapings, and it explains a lot of why. One, we haven't seen anything about an Intercontinental title match, picture, opponent, nothing for Money in the Bank or on SmackDown in general. Here's the crazy part about it: SmackDown is still putting on a show without their mid card involved at all. Like the mid card slot is just dead right now. Maybe because Money in the Bank can kind of shadow that a little bit with qualifier matches and stuff, and putting some of those mid carder guys in that match. But he's not even been on there. And then you got Shinsuke and Cesaro now helping randomly, Baron Corbin. Like it's out of nowhere. Like it's like they just switched and now they have a new leader, and I'm sure like when Zayn comes back, you'll either see them continue just being with Zayn, or you might see the split happen, like where you've been, like you weren't here, whatever. But he's withholding from tapings due to the pandemic. He did have oral surgery, and there was a rumor that says he was just trying to wait for his contract to expire so he could just be done. But his contract now does not expire until fall of 2021.
He's got over a year. He's got a while.
Due to his injuries that have prolonged his contract, and WWE has invoked their right to extend his contract out further due to his injuries. So I just think it's interesting that, one, he's withholding from tapings during this. Not that I'm mad at anybody from withholding from tapings, but he's been doing it this entire time, and then suddenly he gets the belt, and now he's withholding from tapings.
Yeah, that's not something that was that they didn't plan that. They being WWE or Sami Zayn didn't plan that. Like, or maybe he planned it, he just didn't tell WWE, because you don't put a belt on someone and then they decide, well, I'm gonna stay off TV for a while. I mean, if they knew he was going to stay off TV, they would have had him drop it to Daniel Bryan at WrestleMania.
Right.
I mean,
and that's my thought, is like, he had to have known, hey, I'm not really comfortable working in this environment right now. But then they were like, hey, we're going to put the belt on you. It's like, oh, okay, well, I've never had a belt put on me ever in 5 years. of being on the main roster. Maybe, just maybe, I should stick around and get this belt put on me. And then as soon as he got the belt put on him, he invoked the right to not be on air and then use the excuse, well, you said you weren't going to punish anybody for invoking their right not to show up. So now WWE's got their hands tied again. It's like, okay, well, now we can't use the Intercontinental title really at all.
Yeah.
Because he's not willing to come to work. And so,
I mean, that's fine. You can still you can still go from the standpoint of, we're not punishing you, but we need to still feature, we still need to have a program. We still need to have our championships defended, and
at least a promo, at least from your house, do a, like what I've been really impressed with Chris Jericho and the Bubbly Bunch thing and them shooting promos. These guys, most of these guys aren't even on AEW television. Most of the tapings that they've done.
Right.
So these guys are from home shooting little vignettes or little promos on their phones and then editing it all together. You could easily, he's probably in Florida if I had to imagine, because he's been on air. So you're there, just pop in real quick or have someone pop to your house and shoot a promo. At least keep the Intercontinental title picture believable. Like it's still there. Like, I don't even know, like, I feel like it's forgotten about now. Like, and this is what makes that title lose its luster in a sense, is when you take it off TV. This is why the Universal title is hard to get behind sometimes, or the world title in general, because they put it on these part-timers and then they sit at home forever. And you're like, there's been pay-per-views where the title wasn't even defended. And it's like, I don't remember if it's even an important title anymore.
Yeah.
The Intercontinental title is supposed to be so much more important than it gets given credit for. And it's partly due to the fact that this is the stuff that happens. You put it on a guy like Sami Zayn who's talented, but then he's sitting at home with it, and you don't do anything to bring recognition to it still. There's no promos. There's no number one contender matches for a future match. There's nothing going on in that title picture. And so, and then the lackeys that they put with him are now just randomly helping out another wrestler. And so not only him sitting at home hurts him and the Intercontinental title, it hurts Cesaro and Shinsuke, because their push was involved with Sammy, and now their storyline for whatever it was is now completely, shot.
Yeah. Brett says Xavier Woods would make a great manager like Sami Zayn when they stop wrestling. They're dynamic on the microphone. Lynn says, yes, could just be wanting a few weeks off to rest up, talking about Kevin Owens. Brett says Corbin is the best heel in WWE. I don't count The Fiend as a heel. He's far too enjoyable. Andy says at times like this, I wish the 30-day rule was in effect as far as having to defend a title within 30 days. 100% agree.
Yeah.
Brett says, Andy, haha, imagine when they would have had to have Brock show up monthly. Hogan at least defended at house shows and pay-per-views. Andy says, I miss Jack Tunney. Rest in peace. Jack Tunney as an on-screen authority figure was fantastic. If you've not, if some of you new school fans, if you don't know who Jack Tunney is, and if you have the WWE Network, or even on YouTube, you can go check out some clips of Jack Tunney acting as president of the WWF at the time. So,
I am old school in the fact that I wish things were 30 days. I wish they had to defend on a regular basis. I miss having a Raw where there was just a world title match on Raw. Most of the time they don't switch hands, but just keeping me on the edge of my seat, making me think that something could happen, would happen, right. Especially when Money in the Bank, once they get the briefcase, knowing that they're out there, that at any moment on a random Raw, this person could run out and cash in and keep you on the edge of your seat. I wish there was more of that, and there just isn't.
Yeah, 100% agree. All right, well, we've hit a point in the show where
promotional consideration paid for by the following.
Where I want to let you know that you guys can check out the Going Broadway podcast with new shows every week on Apple Podcasts and Google Podcasts, as well as a number of other platforms where you can access your podcasting. For those of you watching us live right now, each show is archived, and you can go back and watch any one of them on our Facebook channel, our Facebook page, and our YouTube channel as well. You can go to facebook.com/Going Broadway Podcast. That is the link over there. You can go to goingbroadwaypodcast.com/YouTube. That's right there. You can also check us out on Twitter at GoingBRDWI Pod. That is below Cole. And you can also go to Instagram, Same thing at Going BRDWI Pod. Please like our Facebook page. Please follow us on Twitter and Instagram. Please subscribe to our YouTube page. If you haven't done those already, those are going to maximize your chances of entering our belt and t-shirt and otherwise merch giveaways in the future. I mentioned that we are going to be having our next belt giveaway once we hit 3,000 likes on Facebook. I think we're at about 2,100 right now, so got a ways to go. Help us get there. I know we're pretty close to 500 follows on Twitter. That's when we're going to do our next t-shirt giveaway. I think we're like 460, 470. So please share our pages with your friends, with your own followers, in any wrestling groups you might be in. Help get the word out about our show, about our giveaways. Please also download our free app. It's called Yo Radio. It can be downloaded via the App Store or Google Play. Yo Radio is the most advanced, user-driven streaming radio service on the market today. Everything you'd expect and more from the most full-featured platforms ever developed. Listen to an endless genre of music, podcasting, including our show via the Lineup channel, sports news and more 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and always 100% free. Again, that's Yo Radio, available via the App Store, Google Play, or by visiting yoradio.com. You can also check out our show via our web host at lineupmedia.fm. Let's see, we got some other comments here. Lynn says he met Jack Tunney at my place place of work back in the day in Canada near Detroit. That's awesome. Evander says takes on the rumor of WWE selling to Fox or ESPN. I don't know if this was discussed already. Yeah, we talked about it on this past Thursday's podcast, so you can check that out. Long story short, I'd be surprised if McMahon sells. Brett says, is there a lifetime supply of Ico Pro giveaway? No, unfortunately not. I don't think they make Ico Pro anymore. I love the old school reference, though. That's awesome. Brandon says, Wood should turn his back on New Day and team with Ricochet when he returns. I don't know about that.
I agree with Brett here. Brett's comment talking about how they should never break up the New Day, but let them venture out on their own kind of single runs or different things, and I agree completely. I don't think you have to destroy one of the best factions you've gotten to work in years that has been consistent for years.
Just do what you did with the Shield. They all went their separate ways.
You don't have to have like a turn.
Well, of course, I guess they did.
The Seth Rollins turn was insane, and it was shocking. I don't think you get the same pop with the New Day when that happens,
unless it's like a big if it's done in such a way that someone turns heel with. I mean, Seth Rollins hitting Roman Reigns. I mean, the storyline was set up to where it was big, but also they made it feel more big whenever he hit that chair shot on Seth Rollins. They'd have to do it right if they turned one of them heel.
And I just don't think you have to do that. When you could keep the merch would stay selling with them all still being in solo single careers. Big E does deserve a chance, 100%.
Agreed.
We say that all the time. And I even think Xavier Woods needs a chance in the mid card. I think he could be a decent Intercontinental Champion, United States Champion, kind of role. So definitely don't think you have to split them for them to do their thing.
I'm surprised they don't have some more of these, like, I don't want to say spokespeople, but like active talent that also act as ambassadors for the company in a more prominent role in terms of, maybe even a mid-card title picture. I mean, Xavier Woods is one of them. I know they have Titus O'Neil do a lot of PR type stuff. I'm really surprised that they don't put those guys in a more prominent role on TV to kind of help boost that, anytime they do PR type stuff. Evander says, even if Velveteen Dream news turns out to be a hack, I believe he's going to be canned.
Just depends.
You'll
see this Wednesday night, I guess.
Yeah, I was going to say, Wednesday's NXT is going to be awesome. And I told Cole I'm going to make more of an effort to watch both AEW and NXT. Watch one of them Wednesday night and then wake up early the following Thursday morning to catch the other. this Wednesday, I'm probably going to watch NXT and then catch AEW the early Thursday morning, just because, I mean, this is setting up to be like a takeover type card. So I'm excited about it. I think Cole's right. I think we'll kind of get more of an idea of what's going to happen maybe once after Wednesday. Lynn says, want my WWF ice cream sandwich bars. Right. Evander says, wasn't there at one point talks about turning Big E turning on them when Kofi was champion? Yeah, it was rumored, but I mean, a Big E
not necessary, but
a Big E heel turn has been rumored for quite a while. Brett says, save the New Day shocker when they feud in 2 years with a reunited monster of a stable 3-man band.
What's with it? I see this everywhere. What's the infatuation with 3MB? Like, it was not a good faction. Don't get me wrong. It was funny. It had that comedic relief, but they didn't do anything prominent as a faction. Jinder Mahal got a push because Vince McMahon likes him.
And he got a push because they were getting ready to go over into India, which was completely
makes sense, right?
Well, it made sense on paper, but he wasn't even champion by the time they went to India,
right.
I don't believe. So
it was just to get the crowd kind of into it, I guess, beforehand. And then Drew McIntyre has the belt now, and then I've been reading rumors that after this pandemic over, they're going to re-sign Heath, and then Heath's going to get this huge push because he's going to build up muscle while he's off and all this stuff. And I'm like, that's all great, but then you think they're going to reunite 3MB because that's what happened? That would be the worst decision that you could ever make.
They wouldn't reunite them permanently, but they might do a spot where, like, I mean, just fast forward 3 or 4 years from now, or however long, X amount of time. Heath Slater goes on the Indies. He kind of bulks up a little bit. He gets better in the ring. He's pretty good on the mic as it is, but maybe gets a little better on the mic as well. Comes back. Let's say Drew and Jinder are still in WWE. Heath comes back. Maybe they have this kind of cool moment during like a Royal Rumble or something to where like the crowd kind of knows, if it's just those three left standing after some kind of a schmoz. Maybe something like that, but they're not going to bring back 3MB as a permanent fixture.
He's saying 3MB WWE title match. I don't see it.
I don't either. I don't.
And I like 2 of the 3. Like, I like Drew. I've always liked Drew McIntyre. Even when he had his first run in WWE, I liked him. And I like Heath Slater, but I don't think Jinder Mahal's as good as he gets credit for.
Not at all.
Like, he's all right. He's all right at best. Like, but to tell me that they're gonna be in a triple threat at WWE, like that's if we have another pandemic and everybody's sitting at home. Like that,
we're gonna have a triple threat title match with members of the New Day before we have a 3MB title match.
I agree 100%.
Brett says don't hinder Jinder. Well, I'm gonna hinder Jinder if I'm
not
have
dissing
any say
on him.
in it.
I just
I will.
I just don't think he deserves the push that he gets all the time.
I will diss Jinder Mahal all day long. I think he's mediocre at best. He's not very good on the mic. I think in-ring talent is, again, average at best. He was put in a role because he was put in a role for a public relations reason or for a media reason. They were getting ready to go over to India. They put the belt on him, but by the time they went over to India, he wasn't even the champion. The
problem I have with him though is that I've heard 2 rumors now from reliable sources that Drew McIntyre wants a title feud with Jinder.
I wouldn't be surprised if it happens.
Which that doesn't shock me. They have a good relationship, and Drew probably has the ability to help get that storyline over. Mm-hmm. So that doesn't bother me. But then I also read a rumor, and if he's in this gauntlet match, so help me God, if he wins this gauntlet match, I would not be shocked if they decide to pull the trigger and let him win the Money in the Bank, because I just believe it because they do this with him. They like him. And I read a rumor that said he had already been put in the Money in the Bank match, and then like it got backtracked and said, oh no, it's a gauntlet match now that's going to decide it. And I'm telling you, if he is in that gauntlet match, do not be surprised if he wins it, because like they like him. And there's a rumor that Drew wants to work with him.
Well, whatever.
He doesn't need to win it. They could just put him in the match because they can. Like, yeah.
Brett says he needs a manager again. I know, same thing they did to Khali. Lynn says Jinder is mid-card and maybe should stay there until they can push him properly. I don't think they need to push him, period. I think
mid-card maybe.
Mid-card is also a hard maybe. I mean, to this day, I still think mid-card, I think the guys on the card that are the workers of your company and that are looking to move up in the card. I mean, they're looking to prove to whatever organization they work for that they can be a legit talent that they can put in the main title picture because they can put on good matches, because they're good on the microphone.
Yeah, when you have mid-carders who can put on like 5-star matches, like that's where I miss kind of like the Chris Jerichos, even like Edge, Christian, some of those guys who they were able to put on those 5. I mean, the Chris Jericho and Kevin Owens program, Chris Jericho and CM Punk program, like
right.
Some of those matches were phenomenal, and they were the Intercontinental, the United States Championship match. And you even go further back to some of the guys that are legends now. They became legends not because of necessarily their world title runs, but because of all the work, the body of work that came before that, which was the Intercontinental matches. You know, that's why that belt's so watered down now, because you don't get the same kind of stars holding it. You know, it's all back to just filling the belt with somebody. You know, and so I'm not dissing Jinder. Maybe if he reworked his gimmick a little bit and there was a little bit of a difference than just being, you know, Indian. I hate to put it that way, but like if there was something better to do with him than just being a heel foreigner, I don't know. That kind of thing just doesn't get over as much anymore.
Yeah. All right, guys, we're going to switch gears a little bit here. So we had our most recent Hall of Fame voting on our Facebook page, and it is my honor and privilege to officially induct the late, great Dusty Rhodes into our next Going Broadway Podcast Hall of Fame. It's going to be a monthly induction for each. We're going to do a monthly induction. So as of now, we've got Ric Flair and we've got Dusty Rhodes. I'm going to request that you guys send your suggestions on who should be included in our next voting. Basically how it works is that we've got you guys send suggestions, give me some names, and then whoever's got the most suggestions, I basically put up a poll of the 2 top guys that got the most suggestions or got the most, I guess I'll call them pre-votes, and then you guys will vote on them. And then this time next month at the beginning of June, we'll do our next induction. So I wish I had a Dusty Rhodes soundbite, if you will.
I had someone just quoted
it. Oh, did they?
Yeah.
Oh, Cade. Yeah, you beat me to it. So let's talk about Dark Side of the Ring a little bit. We didn't get to it this past Thursday, so I want to talk a little bit about it today. This was on Dr. D. David Schultz, and a lot of people probably aren't as familiar with him because he wasn't around very long, at least in a prominent, I'll call it nationwide. He wasn't viewed nationwide for that long of an extended period of time. I mean, to be quite honest, if at all. I mean, he was out the door of WWF. He was out the door of WWF before WrestleMania 1. But to give you guys a little bit of background on Dr. D. David Schultz, so he started out in the what was the NWA Mid-America territory in the 1970s. He won singles and tag championships with various guys. He was in the NWA Southeastern Territory. He won titles there as well. He wrestled for the Hart family in Stampede Wrestling. He was part of Atlantic Grand Prix Wrestling. You guys got to think this is in the 70s, so this was still during the territories time period. He wrestled for AWA briefly, I believe. No, I'm sorry. He was not AWA, but he did wrestle Nick Bockwinkel at one time in an interpromotional match. He was in Memphis again. That kind of falls under the Southeastern Territory, I believe. If the Professor Mark Cyrus is watching, he can confirm or correct me on that.
He actually hasn't said he was on today.
Yeah, and I'm kind of surprised. We've kind of got this is one of our
He usually says the bearded one has arrived, and usually by now would make fun of me.
Yeah. I'm going to read some of these comments real quick. Dusty says, get a dream, hold on to it, and shoot for the sky. Kate,
Dusty did say that.
yeah. Kate suggests Arn Anderson. That's a great suggestion. Evander says, true, I always loved heel Orton. He was okay when he faced Christian, but to me, he works out better as a heel. Brett says, enjoy the podcast after run out. I'll catch the rest later today. I appreciate it. We appreciate it. Dusty says so Dr. D, I'll get back to him. Actually, one last quote real quick from Lynn. Hard times are when the auto workers are out of work and they tell them to go home, and hard times are when a man has worked at a job for 30 years. 30 years, they give him a watch, kick him in the butt, and say, hey, a computer took your place, daddy. That's hard times. If you guys have not seen any of Dusty Rhodes' promos from back in the day, you owe it to yourself to pop on the WWE Network, look it up on YouTube. I mean, you can find them everywhere. Headphones are falling off. Even to this day, I'll have to include that in our blooper reel if we ever make one. Even to this day, I don't know if you have anybody that is or was as good on the mic and as dynamic and improvised on the spot as good as Dusty Rhodes. Anyway, back to Dr. D. David Schultz. So he was Hogan's roommate and actually one of his best friends, if not his best friend during the 80s time period. And so while he was wrestling in the Memphis area, he got the attention of McMahon and the WWF at the time. And fast forward, he was brought to WWF. McMahon said, "Hey, you won't ever have to worry about money again. We'll take care of you. You're going to be featured in a prominent role." So Dr. D. David Schultz, he was kind of like the I'll call it the pre-psychopath kind of persona that predated somebody like a Sid Vicious or a Brian Pillman, like with his loose cannon gimmick. So he kind of laid the groundwork for guys like that would later come. So at the time, 2020, they would do their pieces on various topics that would kind of shed light or pull the veil up, so to speak, on just different things, different topics that weren't known to the American public. So they did a piece on pro wrestling, and they initially, before they actually went to WWF, they had an exclusive interview with help me out, guys. What was his name?
I forget his name. Was it
I gotta look real quick.
Pete or not Pete?
He was an indie wrestler. He never made it on a big stage. It's gonna bug me. Sorry, guys. I honestly don't remember who he interviewed first. If you guys are watching and you watched Dark Side of the Ring, help a brother out here. Anyway, we'll get
I'm gonna look.
We'll get the name later. So John Stossel did an interview with a legit pro wrestler, but he pretty much revealed the secrets of the in-ring stuff. He revealed the secrets of how wrestlers bleed. He actually took a blade and cut his head. Revealed all the secrets. So then fast forward, John Stossel was, I don't know if he was invited or if he asked to come, but regardless, he got backstage, did an interview with Dr. D. David Schultz.
Eddie Mansfield, that's right. Okay. Thomas just
said it. Thomas Cole beat you by about a half a second. So Dr. D. David Schultz slaps John Stossel because he says, I think this is fake. Slaps him not once but twice, and Dr. D essentially says, hey, is that fake? Does that feel fake? And that was pretty much the beginning of the end of Dr. D. David Schultz in the world of pro wrestling, because he would later, they tried to have him go over to Japan, they being WWF, to try to, wait on it to blow over, essentially. But for whatever reason, David Schultz agreed to do a similar angle in Japan that made it look like he assaulted a reporter, but this was planned. So it just, really just made the situation worse. And inevitably, Dr. D. David Schultz would be out the door of WWF before WrestleMania 1 hit. Some say it was partially related to this. Some say it's partially related to some kind of altercation he had with Mr. T, who was with WWF at the time, helping to co-promote WrestleMania 1 that was, on the way shortly. David Schultz was on record and saying he didn't think that Mr. T deserved to be there. It is what it is. So he would continue to wrestle for a while, but then he turned to being a bounty hunter, like a legit bounty hunter, which I found interesting. And I kind of heard about it, but I didn't know if it was true. And obviously it was. They featured it on the show. They featured clips of him apprehending criminals. So
wasn't it like a TV show too? Like, wasn't it?
It might have been. I'm not sure if he was actually on a TV show or not.
I got the vibe that he was on a TV
show.
He
could have been. I'm not really sure. So anyway, long story short, I found it to be a really interesting episode. Well, actually, one of my, unexpected favorites, I'll call it, that has aired from Dark Side of the Ring seasons 1 or 2. And if you guys are watching us, I wanted to get your thoughts on what you thought of it. I'm actually very excited to watch the rest of season 2. Tomorrow, they're going to be talking about Herb Abrams and the UWF. Now, this is not the UWF that, and I'll show you guys this belt again. I've been kind of just holding this belt because I've not really, I had it over my shoulder and it just got too heavy. So, hang on. What did I just do? Sorry, guys, I hit the wrong button. This belt that I'm holding is the Mid-South North American title. Mid-South Wrestling eventually became UWF, but this is not the same UWF. So I'm interested to watch tomorrow's episode because I know some, but I don't know. Let's put it this way. I know very little when it comes to this version of the UWF, when it comes to Herb Abrams. There's stuff you can read online. I've not really dug into it too much. But the next 3 episodes, so you've got Herb Abrams and UWF tomorrow. You've got the Road Warriors in a week, and then you've got the Owen Hart in 2 weeks, which that's the one I'm like, I will be, as soon as that comes on the TV, like that's what I'm going to be watching. So I'm really interested to see these. I think they've done a great job so far with both seasons. This is Viceland Network's top ratings grab. We've talked about it on prior shows. We like the fact that Jericho is kind of narrating this. He is narrating all of these episodes for season 2. No shade to Dutch Mantell. He narrated a lot of season 1. I think Mick Foley did an episode as well, but to me, this is far better in my opinion. So what did you think of the episode?
So I had heard about the whole like slap heard around the world kind of story, but didn't know much about it. So there was a lot of insight, from that standpoint. Just, when they cover just his his startup as far as, getting popular with Hogan kind of on the indie scene, and then McMahon kind of seeing it, saying, he wants to make that a money draw. So that was all interesting. He gets the big deal, and the major push is getting ready to come, right? Like he's literally on the verge of getting his big push. And then you get this is kind of where WWF kind of gets early on. You see the immaturity maybe of the company on how they handled things. They handled a lot of things wrong, as we can see on several Dark Side of the Ring episodes. Mm-hmm. This is probably another one of those cases where they handled something wrong. Because now, if like we all know it's fake, but if that scenario would have happened now, there was no way they would have sent someone like him out there to address the press.
Oh no,
It would have been a John Cena. As you know, kind of looking at the Chris Benoit things that happened, they sent John Cena on NBC to speak on behalf of WWE and said, no, WWE doesn't do this, and we don't do that, and we don't do that, and no, and shut it all down, and was a company guy. I don't think you put a guy who in character is psychotic, and maybe even real life to an extent, you know, being a bounty hunter,
right?
Doing some of the things that he did in real life as far as, you know, just kind of being who he is. I just don't know if that was the guy to put out there and make him be like do you believe that it's real now? Not to mention, not saying that because it's fake, it makes any of these guys less tough, but tell one of those guys it's fake and see how offended they get. Because it's to them it's not a fake fight. They're doing these things. It's real to them. You know, like, so go tell Dr. D it's fake. Of course he's gonna slap you. And that reporter was arrogance on his part. He was trying to draw something out.
And he was super arrogant on the episode too.
Oh yeah, super arrogant. Well, because he got paid as well, but the arrogance to be like, well, you know, kind of starting out the interview like, you know, what's your thoughts on this and that, and kind of being nice or cordial in a sense, but trying to draw like an interesting factor, and then said, well, if you want to ask my opinion, I think it's fake. And like, of course you're literally drawing it out for yourself. So I thought the slap, although necessary, just from like, if you're actually, you know, David Schultz, I would have slapped him too. Because you literally are trampling all over the hard work that he's putting in, and
Right.
and all the injuries and at that time the drugs and all the things that were involved in wrestling at the time. There was so much that went into it that it's hard to get successful and stay successful, and so to call it fake, I would have slapped him too. But again, I go back to maybe that was the wrong decision on WWF's part, because they asked him to go out there.
Yeah.
They said, "Hey, Dr. D, go out there in character, in gimmick, and do this." And Dr. D says in his interview, he says, "Well, Dr. D's character wouldn't have took that, so I slapped him because that's my character. My character is that I if someone said that to me, I'm slapping them." And I was like, okay, well, that makes sense. You got to have a little bit of wisdom. I know you can't slap a commoner, someone that's not scripted into your you know, that'd be like if a fan spit in your face. Well, yeah, my character would slap him, but that doesn't mean you get to slap the fan, you know? So, you know, obviously that was it. Very interesting. And then the second slap as well, going to New Japan and then agreeing to do another storyline where it's a scripted thing. No, you went there to get away from that, not to sell into it. It looks like something WWE would do now. It looks like if something went wrong, WWE would actually like script it to like play into that hand. And during that time, they were trying to get those things to shut down. And so doing that really shot him in the foot. But then also the settlement in itself, you know, because that lawsuit wasn't going away. And that reporter, whatever his name was, Stossel, he was not going away. He wanted his money. All it did was bring more attention to his interview, to his expose or whatever you want to call it, his piece. And Vince McMahon was smart. He said, I can't have you here. You know, it sucks because we missed out on probably what could have been one of the best rivalries and feuds that maybe would have been out there. WrestleMania 1 might have had a way different look to it. Mm-hmm. Had Dr. D been on the card.
Oh, we could have had a way different look for the next couple years.
Right. And we missed out on that. And then the bounty hunter thing was cool, but it also speaks back into the kind of guy that David Schultz is. He is a take no crap kind of guy. He is rough. He's not scared. He's tough as nails. He doesn't have any fear in that sense. And so like it lets me know that in real life he is as hard as they come.
Yeah.
And so his gimmick makes sense, you know, as far as talking about being that kind of chaotic, not really following by anybody's rules or whatever kind of mentality. It makes sense that was his gimmick, but maybe that's his real life persona too. And again, I think the main thing I took away is he was not the guy to put out there for that interview.
Not at all.
Had he not gone out there, one, his career would have been fine. He gets blackballed after that too. You know, Vince McMahon's probably notorious for that throughout the years for blackballing guys.
For sure.
But he gets blackballed in the wrestling business after that too for following what he felt like was what was asked of him. You don't send him out there. Wrestling has changed forever with Dr. D being actually prominent in WWF and probably maybe putting the product even more than what it was at the time. And you could have picked a better guy to put out there for that interview.
Agreed. I'm going to read some comments real quick, and I think we're going to wrap up today's show. Let's see. Evander says, do you think years down the road, Cody would ever make a small return to WWE if AEW was to go down, similar to TNA? I don't know. I really hope AEW sticks around, though, for quite a while. I think they're doing some things different than TNA that's going to help it be more successful, in my opinion. Would he ever return? I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if AEW, if it does go down the tube, so to speak.
There's better minds involved with AEW than there was with TNA too. Like there's a lot more that goes into it. Now, as far as I think you said something about other roster members as well. Talents are going to be ever interchanging. You're probably going to see guys who have never been in WWE that are in AEW now go to WWE. You're going to see guys who were in WWE go to AEW and then maybe go back to WWE. You might see some who go Impact, ROH, and cycle around for a while and then go back to it's always going to be ever changing, especially with the more prominent promotions that are out there.
Agreed. Let's see. Dusty says, I loved how Dr. D out-McMahoned McMahon by saying, I ain't signing nothing because my name ain't on it.
That was a big point too, was when he was trying to get him to kind of assume responsibility in a sense to get the lawsuit off of WWE.
Yeah.
And said, if you sign this, you're good. Like, I got you. And I was like, no, I'm not signing that. That's not what happened.
Exactly. Lynn, you should go watch the Dr. D episode. You guys should watch all the Dark Side of the Ring episodes. Yes. Evander says, has there been a China episode yet? No, there has not, but I think that would be a good one.
I wonder if it's just because of maybe some of the things that they don't want to talk about.
Probably, yeah.
But it would be a really good episode.
Yeah. Thomas says, I do believe that Vince told him to, quote-unquote, blast Stossel, and then when he did, Vince threw him under the bus. Yeah, I think it was just a...
That could be taken out of context, though. Blast could mean, like, you have good mic skills, put him under the water, use your mic skills to blast him. I don't think Vince McMahon told him to go in there and smack the guy.
No, it was definitely the wrong person to send out there in the first place. Kate says, would Magnum TA be a good subject for an episode of Dark Side of the Ring? Potentially. I don't know if Magnum TA had a lot of... I don't know if he had a lot of... how am I trying to phrase this? I don't know if he had a lot of like dark kind of things. I mean, he got paralyzed in a car accident by driving too fast. I mean, he probably... just like a lot of guys in the day, he probably drank and did drugs behind the scenes like a lot of other guys. But, I don't know if there's enough stuff to dig up on him. I don't want to say dig up, but, I don't know if it would be a good episode in terms of learning about stuff that went on behind the scenes. And maybe there was. I don't know.
There's probably better people to cover before.
Agreed. I will shout out, though, Magnum TA, because he's the one that made this belt famous. If you guys haven't seen it already, I'm holding the Mid-South North American Heavyweight Championship belt. The thing is a monster. Just for clarification, this is not a belt giveaway belt, at least not right now. I could change my mind. Who knows? Evander says, I remember when Edge went off on TV when someone called in calling it fake. Thomas says he even admitted that his quote-unquote pain went away when he got paid. Yeah, that's what the doctor said, right? WWE doctor or WWF doctor that evaluated him said that he had, before ever evaluating him, which this could be true or not true. You're taking the guy who got the payday's word on it. Mm-hmm. That before he ever evaluated him, he said that he had some kind of like mental pain, because it happened, it more traumatized him mentally than it did physically. Because the slap wasn't really that hard. I mean, even if it hit your ear, I don't think it was hard enough to break your eardrum or... I don't know. I mean, he got hit pretty hard, and it was the second hit that he got.
Yeah, I still don't know if it was hard enough to think that you had forever damage, that just lasted that. I don't know if I would go that far. And then that tells me his pain went away when money hit. Yeah, he was looking for the payday one from WWF just for the settlement satisfaction, and it also got him fame on his piece.
Yeah,
his piece alone has the most. He talks about it. He has more views on that than any other interview he's ever done.
As I say, he probably made and is making just as much money, or made just as much money when you combine what he's made previously combined to maybe what he's making now, still from those views, because he's probably getting a royalty off anytime that video is viewed, or he's probably getting something.
Oh yeah,
but he's probably made more he's probably made more to date, if not more, probably close to just as much, just from that piece as he did that their settlement. So David said some fans need a good slapping. Well,
he's not really a fan.
Yeah, I mean he
was somebody trying to and of course a lot of guys were upset at the time because Eddie Mansfield out of the whole business. He literally went on national television and said, "Oh no, this is how we do everything," and that definitely didn't help either.
No, and Eddie
Mansfield doesn't say all that stuff. You may not even have that interview.
Yeah, I mean, and Eddie Mansfield can claim all he wants that he was trying to do it to help the boys and to help the business by, whether it was unionizing or helping with getting benefits. You don't give away the secrets to the wrestling business in the mid '80s to try to help a cause. It makes zero sense.
Even if it was his intention, you would think that you would have sought out some advice from the boys. You don't go and you don't go and speak on behalf of me without asking me what my thoughts are.
Agreed.
And so you trying to be a spokesperson for people who didn't want you to talk is that only makes sense. Even if that was your true intentions. If I was to give you the benefit of the doubt, you don't go and speak on behalf of the whole business without asking, hey, is this something that I should do?
Agreed. Couple quick comments, and then we're going to call it an episode. Call it a podcast, whatever you want to call it. William says, Dynamite Kid would be a good Dark Side episode. Yeah, that would be good. And I would enjoy that because I don't know a whole lot about Dynamite Kid. I mean, I know a lot of these episodes, I'm going into it, and I'm just like, okay, I'm going to watch it, but I kind of already know a lot of the ins and outs, a lot of the details. But then there are some episodes I'm just like, well, I know some, but maybe, hopefully, I don't know as much, and that would be one of them. Joshua says, okay, you piqued my interest. I'm going to check out Dark Side of the Ring. Yeah, if you have not watched any of them, watch all of them. Go back to season 1. Watch all of season 2. I mean, they're going to have to figure out a way to get content for episode 3. I mean, people are just into this.
Well, and that's series. Why I'm actually kind of enjoying some of the more storylines that have the person still actively alive and able to speak about their side of the story. Mm-hmm. That's why I'm kind of excited for the Road Warrior thing, because we're going to at least be able to hear from one of them.
If they can get Animal on there,
he's been pretty vocal. There's a lot of interviews with him out there, so
I think that's just it though. He's overly vocal at times because he's very open and opinionated with a lot of his political stances and things like that. So I'm curious as to
if he's on there. I'm excited to hear what he has to say, and so I wouldn't mind hearing some of these. Like Jeff Hardy at some point would be great to kind of hear his ups and downs and things that he's gone through.
They won't do one of those though unless he's
not with the company anymore.
Right, yeah, unless he's not with WWE.
Those are the kind of guys. I want to know more about some of these guys who have had ups and downs but are still alive to talk about it, and I'm not just hearing it from their family member.
Lynn says a good episode that might be a good one would be Death of the Territories. That'd be good. Andrew says Dark Side of the Ring season 3 wish list: Ken Patera, Pitbull 2, Buck Zumhoff, Mel Phillips, Mitsuhara Masawa, Rockin' Rebel, Dynamite Kid, Magnum TA. Yeah,
he put a whole episode. He put a whole season.
There's your season 3 right there, guys. Viceland Network. Contact Andrew Lassell. I hope I'm pronouncing your last name right. All right, guys. Thanks for hanging out with us. We will be back Thursday at 10 a.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Central. We are here every Monday and Thursday at 10 a.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Central. On Thursday, we're going to go through, it's going to be our go-home show, so to speak, for Money in the Bank. We'll give our predictions. We'll recap some AEW and NXT from Wednesday night. We might talk about UWF Dark Side of the Ring. There's a lot going on this week, so Thursday's shows are usually pretty jam-packed. So that all being said, again, thanks for joining us. Thanks for hanging out. We always enjoy the conversation. Andrew, thank you. I appreciate it. For Cole, for Alex, myself, once again, to reiterate, we'll be back Thursday at 10 a.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Central. And until then.
And so, goodbye. Mwah. And good night. Bye.
This podcast was a presentation of LightUpMedia.fm.